Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me Luke Shankula. He is a CEO and leading mortgage marketing expert. And boy, that's a huge challenge right now when you think about mortgage and real estate in today's uncertain market. So if you would just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in this, then we'll talk a little bit about what some of the challenges are today.
Sure. So thank you for having me. First of all, thank you so much. Second of all, I work in the mortgage industry here, doing marketing for mortgage professionals. The reason I sort of fell into this market was
here. Just a moment. Where is here?
I'm in San Diego.
Okay.
I'm in San Diego. My team's kind of based all over the place. Everybody's remote. So I have people, internationally. I have people here, in Minnesota and Florida. So we're all over the place, but I live in San Diego, so, I get the horrible weather that we have down here, right? But,
yes.
So how I got started in this space is right out of college, probably 6-8 months later, I got a job. It's kind of like entry-level job at a mortgage company. I was doing all kinds of different things, worked there for about 4.5 years. And then they decided, the company that owned the little mortgage the division I was under, they decided to shut down our division, laid everybody off January of 2017. I was like, you know what? I want to go off on my own. I tried to start a contract processing business. I tried I got my license to become a loan officer myself. And in that time, I started to learn Facebook ads, marketing, strategy, stuff like that, to generate leads for myself, to generate business for myself. In the meantime, I pretty much found out that I didn't want to become a loan officer, but I did fall in love with marketing. And so I guess the rest is history. I mean, while, there definitely wasn't a smooth ride. It was probably, a good 2 years before I made any money. But yeah, that's kind of the way I got started there with getting into the space, because I just naturally fell into working with loan officers because of my background, right?
Got it. So you talk about 2020 being a great year for mortgages. Talk a little bit about that. And we're getting towards the end of 2020, so predictions for 2021 may be useful as well.
Yeah, I mean, so right now rates are about as low as they've ever been. And so, for people that have mortgages, refinancing is fantastic right now. Obviously, the rates are really low, historically low rates. So it's definitely important there. And the reality is it's probably not going to stick around forever. There's some people that say the rates are going to be low for the next 12, 18 months. There's some people think that as soon as the everything that happens with the forbearances, like, how many people are in forbearance right now, whenever that sort of shoe drops, there may be some issues with the market. So there's a lot of sort of differing opinions there. But the reality is there's probably going to be a sort of an extended period of lower rates, which is good for refinancing. It's good for purchasing because you have increased purchase power. Obviously providing that you have a stable job, stable income, stuff like that. It's probably a really great time to buy or refinance, just from the standpoint of rates are so low that your purchasing power is much higher generally than it has been in the past, right?
So Luke, you focus on residential property? Because I would guess that there's quite a difference between residential and commercial property today.
Correct. Yeah. So we work primarily, and by primarily we work only with residential loan officers, branch managers, brokers, anybody in that mortgage space that works with residential. We do service those people, right?
Okay. So you also talk about this as a business opportunity for a lot of people. Talk a little bit about that.
What do you mean, business opportunity for
loan
officers?
Pardon me?
For loan officers?
For actually being in the residential business.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, the opportunity right now is huge, right? Because of the fact that the rates are low, loan officers are probably busier than they have been in a very, very long time, if not ever. Because again, everybody has the capacity to refinance right now, right? I mean, I've heard people that are getting rates in the twos, which is pretty much unheard of. I mean, I remember I bought my house in 2015 and we got, like a 3.25, which was pretty much unheard of at the time. And now I'm seeing sometimes even like VA programs and stuff like that. Again, this is all contingent on your credit profile and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm not a loan officer myself, but I've seen people getting as low as 2.25 even these days, right? Which is super low, right? And so loan officers right now are very overwhelmed with the volume. I think the applications are like 2 to 3 times the amount they normally are. Wow. And generally the time that's the busiest is the summer, but it's really been nonstop since probably about March. March was when the rates really started dropping, and then they continued to go lower and lower and lower. And so, where we're at right now, the loan officers are just real busy, right? And so, yeah, it's a good opportunity for loan officers, but with the reality that it is going to change at some point. The market's going to slow down. Obviously, it's kind of strange because at the back end of COVID, or like when COVID started, that's really what drove the rates down, which is for this specific community has actually driven business up. Whereas, in some industries, it's actually caused the opposite, right?
Right.
So, for right now, it's a good position to be in for loan officers.
So, Luke, you do a lot of work in the digital marketing space with lead
Mm-hmm.
generation, and you do that specifically for what purpose?
So we're helping loan officers identify consumers that are looking to purchase or refinance a house, right? So we use digital marketing, Facebook ads, Instagram, kind of dabbling with YouTube right now as well, and just putting an offer in front of them saying, hey, we got these programs that are available that can help you buy a house. Rates are at the lowest ever. Come check us out. And then we have our clients reach out to them once someone inquires for, let's say a purchase or refinance. They walk them through the process, they get them approved, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so if you would spend a little bit of time talking about your lead generation process, because I know for most people in the marketing world, lead generation is the make it or break it part of the marketing effort, right? So if you would talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the one thing that I want to sort of hit on as well, on top of just the lead generation piece, is understanding that leads are great and all, like getting inquiries, getting people that are interested in your services is awesome, but it's only great if you have a process in place to convert those leads, those inquiries into deals, right? The average, I think the average, based off of studies, the average company only contacts about 50% of their leads. That's like that. If you look at like the stats, wow. About 50% of the leads, most people are contacting them 24 to 48 hours after the lead comes in, which means the person has moved on. They pretty much probably forgot what they were opting in for. So the reality is, if you're going to invest in something like marketing in lead generation sort of activities, you need to have a systemized process on the back end that can convert people from just an inquiry into an actual deal, right? Into an actual customer. Because a lot of times what people think is that by just paying for leads, by just paying for more inquiries, it's just going to lead to more business. But you can't just pour a whole bunch of leads into a broken system. What you're going to get if you get a whole bunch of leads into a broken system is you're going to get broken results, right? You're not going to convert at the level you want. You're not going to get as many customers as you want. And so that piece is super important. That being said, I don't know if you had a question there.
Yeah. So what's the ratio that you think a good marketer should be able to achieve in terms of taking a lead and to conversion?
So it's going to depend wildly, both on industry. So for my specific industry, our conversion rates are fairly low, but because of the price points of and the sort of size of the transactions that they do, they only need a couple out of every 100 to make a profit, right? To ROI, right? So for what we do, incredible conversion is like 3 to 5%, right? In other industries, that's probably not going to be the same, right? Like if they're lower ticket items, if it's, chiropractor, dentist, stuff like that, it's going to be a little bit different. And it's very contingent, again, based off of the end user, right? So let's just say, we're sending the leads to, a dentist or something like that. If they're not calling the leads and all that stuff, they're not going to have the same success as the next dentist that is picking up the phone. They are calling, they are scheduling them in, they are following up with them. Like those steps are super important, but a lot of it comes down to the end user. Who's the person that's actually going to do the actions that are going to convert leads into closed deals, right? And so that's why I harp on that, because the lead is such a small piece of the puzzle, but everybody thinks that by just buying a bunch of leads or buying a bunch of, starting to do marketing without having the process on the back end, that is just going to miraculously turn into money. But that's just not really true, right?
Right. So share with us, if you would please, the back-end process that you use.
Yeah. So as far as the process goes, I'll kind of like walk through what we do real quick on the front end, since that's kind of what we had started with, and then I went off on a tangent. On the front end, so one of the things that I always try to do is warm up the leads a little bit more. So we generally ask people between 12 and 14 questions on the front end. So what we're doing there is we're finding the people that have higher intent versus just people that are looky-loos that are just kind of like clicking around, especially with a platform like Facebook, because of the fact that people don't go on Facebook necessarily to buy things, right? Whereas like Google's a little different. They're going to search for something. With Facebook, you need to find a way to filter out the looky-loos. So by doing multiple questions like that, 10, 12, 14 questions, you're going to weed out some of the people that aren't interested. So only the very most high intent people are going to fill out the information. Then we send them into automations, because while automations are awesome, email drips, text message drips, we're just trying to get some conversation started with that person, and then the salesperson takes over as soon as a prospect responds. However, on the back end, obviously that's super important as well, and that's one of the things we teach our loan officers, is that it's just such a small piece of the equation is generating the leads, right? Everybody thinks that, again, by generating a whole bunch of leads, they're going to make a bunch of money, but that doesn't happen if you don't have the right process. So what we tell our guys is you need to call right away. Like if you call within 60 seconds, you're more likely to get a conversion than if you wait 24, 48 hours. One of the studies that was done was that if you call within 5 minutes versus 30 minutes, there's 100 times greater chance of getting a hold of that person. So just a 25-minute difference between 5 and 30 minutes will decrease your chances of getting a hold of them by 100 times. And this was a study that was done in like 2015. So I would imagine in 2020, consumers are a little more savvy. They know that when they opt in, they're going to get calls, stuff like that. It might even be more important. Plus, there's more distractions now than ever. People are on Facebook. They're on all kinds of places. They might have done something else. So it's very important. Speed to lead is the first thing that we tell our people. That's super important. Also, having a good process, right? So a lot of times people will try to approach an internet lead the same way that they approach referrals, right? And so if you try to approach both of those the same way, or people that are like interested in looking for your stuff, you're not going to have the same response. You're not going to have the same conversion as you will with something like a referral, or someone that's literally walked into your office that has an issue, right? So you need to build that that trust. You need to build that with them. You have to build a little bit of rapport. So we kind of tell our people, hey, spend a couple minutes at the very beginning of the call building rapport. Oh, cool. You live in this neighborhood? Oh, I grew up there, or whatever. I live down the street, or, oh, I love that area. That's a great area. Oh, what's going on with you? Are you a teacher? Cool. Yeah, my mom's a teacher. So just kind of building some rapport there. It doesn't have to get crazy. You don't have to get super deep, but just building a little bit of rapport so that they can feel that you're a real person. You're not just some call center guy that's just calling them and trying to, get a bunch of information from them. You're a real person, right? And then also being an advisor. I think so many times, at least again, I'm speaking a lot of this experience from my specific industry, which is working with loan officers. A lot of times people get on these calls and they're super transactional. They're going for the sale, right? They almost have commission breath. They want to get the sale, and that's all they can think about. So they go straight for the sale. Oh, let me get the application. Let me fill out all your information. And like the person's like, well, no, I don't want to fill this out. Like, so you have to dig into what they want, what their needs are, their obstacles, what's held them back from doing that service that, for us, obviously mortgage. So what's been holding you back from purchasing up till this point? And you can start to figure out what's going on. The other thing as well is some of these people, consumers don't always know what's needed, to buy a mortgage, right? And so a lot of loan officers just assume that everybody knows what's going on, that you don't need 20% down, that you don't need 800 credit score to buy a house, all these things that are sort of not myths, but that's just kind of what's pervasive out there is like, hey, you need 20% down or you should have 20% down. But there's great programs that allow you to put a little bit less down, get into a house earlier, and so you can start to build equity that way. So we just tell them, hey, be an advisor and sort of show them what's available on that front, if that makes sense.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say, I mean, I think it's fascinating that there's the 100-fold differential in 25 minutes. So in order to achieve that, you have to have people answering the phone around the clock for you. I mean, and just keeping track of that is quite a process, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, 100%. Right. And so that's why I mentioned, like, you know, and one of the things I learned as well is when I kind of first started, I just thought I could just throw a bunch of leads at them and you know, and that didn't work. And then I thought by, you know, hey, we're going to increase the intent. We do the long form, like I mentioned, right? We 10, 12 pieces of information. That still didn't work. Our clients are still not converting. They were still leaving. Or, you know, then I introduced automation and I thought that was going to help. Then I realized, no, automation is not going to close the deal. So one thing that we introduced back in December of this last year was we actually brought in 2 LO coaches, people that have experience in this industry. So we actually have them do weekly calls to train up our clients on best practice, on what to do, on how quickly to call them, on what to say, how, you know, once they get the application, what happens after that? What does that process look like? Are they following up with them? Hey, how do you get them in contract? How do you get them in contact with a real estate agent that can go out and get them looking at houses? You know, stuff like that most people don't think about, right? Again, it's just the little tip of the iceberg with leads. Is like, that's such a small piece of the puzzle. But again, if you pour a whole bunch of leads and, like you said, you know, having a CRM, taking notes, we found that the people that have the best success are ruthless about taking notes. You know, they know exactly what they're doing. They know where they are in the process. And that's why they convert at such a high level, right?
So the back end process is hugely important. The speed at which you manage people is important. Mm-hmm. Where else can people fail in the process?
Man, so I would say that probably one of the biggest, and I think this applies to everybody and for everything, is mindset. It all comes down to mindset. I think if you approach anything with a bad mindset, the outcome is likely not going to be what you want it to be, right? So in this case, if you get on a call and you're just assuming that every single call is going to be, that they're not going to want your service, or, you know, you just don't have the energy or whatever. So you get on a call and you're like, hi, this is Luke, and I, you know, just was calling on your inquiry. Like that energy, like they can feel that, right? They can feel that you're not motivated. They can feel like that you don't actually want to, versus being excited, getting on the call, like just seeing them as another person that you can serve, you can help. And I think that applies to everything, right? If you approach anything with a bad mindset, again, it's going to generally have a bad outcome, right? And you're going to blame, oh, well, I tried. But no, I think that really it comes down to mindset, having the growth mentality, knowing that, hey, you're not going to be perfect when you first start. It's all about improving, reiterating, continuing to improve on your processes, because, you know, even people with experience come in, they have to learn our process. They have to learn exactly what we do. And even though they're great at already doing some of this stuff, they have to implement some of the additional tools and resources that we have. And so it takes a little bit of time for people to catch on. And we notice the people that have the right mindset, that understand it's a long game. And that's the other thing with marketing. It's a long game. Some people try to do it for a month and then they're like, it didn't work. You know, and the reality is marketing takes time. You're building a pipeline. You're getting people inside into your sort of sphere, and over time you can convert them. You can give them value. You can send them emails just saying, hey, you know, here's some free value on X, Y, and Z type of thing, right? And so that's huge as well.
So Luke, part of what I'm hearing you say is you've developed a process for working with loan officers to help them really understand the process that creates success. You want to talk a little bit about that process that you take people through and what you offer in terms of those services?
Yeah. So the process that we really take them through is I'll start just from my own mindset and the way I've built my business and the way I've kind of shifted the way we do things as well. Is it all and it's what's funny is that I've had multiple marketers, because I do a lot of organic marketing, sharing my results on Facebook, and I've had other marketers reach out. How are your clients getting such good results? Asking me stuff like that. And what I tell them a lot of times is like, hey, I know you're looking for tactics. I know you're looking for strategies, but I'm not going to give you any of that. I'm going to give you the mindset behind why it all works. Right. And again, I'm huge on mindset. The strategy and the tactics, obviously that matters, but you have to have the tactics generally are not going to work long-term unless you have the right idea or the right philosophy for the way you're building the business. And so the way I do it is like, hey, I'm selling them on the long term on my ads that are on the front end. I'm selling them on a long term on our sales process. Hey, it's going to take work. It's not easy. Like these leads are not just going to convert themselves. Like I almost like tell them it's going to be hard. So if you don't want to work, it's not for you, type of a thing, right? I try not to oversell. I try to undersell and then over deliver. Because I just found that by selling them this huge dream, all of a sudden they get in and it's work and it's all these things. And so it's like by having that mindset of like, let them know, like just give them the roadmap. This is what it's going to look like. It's going to take 6 months, 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, 180 days for you to start seeing results, especially in my industry, because the average sales cycle for mortgage is like 6 to 18 months, right? As soon as someone starts to buy a house or wants to buy a house, they don't all of a sudden 30 days later go buy a house, right? They start thinking about it. They go look on Zillow. They start talking to their friends about it. They start, finding a loan officer or a real estate agent that they can talk to. They start figuring out their finances. Okay, well, how much money do I need down? That's the reality of the sales cycle for mortgage, right? And so if they have that mindset that somehow a marketer is going to miraculously compress a sales cycle into 30 days, that's probably not the right fit for our organization, right? And so we choose to work with people, or we try to work with people and choose to work with people that we think we can get results for. It doesn't always play out that way. It's pretty hard to get 100% results, but that's what we're striving for, right? It's because we don't want to work with people that we don't think they have the wrong mindset. Maybe they don't have the resource. Maybe they're too new. Or maybe they're too busy. And we can even sometimes tell them that, hey, like it's not going to be a good fit right now. Figure out your processes on the back end. And so that's the big thing, is like walking them through that whole process the whole time. We have an onboarding call where we basically set expectations again. So we do the sales cycle, the front end ads, the onboarding call on an ongoing basis. We talk about it as well. Just again, setting that expectation. Marketing is a long-term game. But the way we sort of have that process in place is we have an onboarding call, and then we also have a training portal with all kinds of information on here's what the sales cycle looks like, here's what the processes look like, here's the scripts that you can use. And then on a weekly basis, we do have our 2 coaches that do live training calls in our groups. So we have a Facebook group as well, like a mastermind sort of thing. They can go into, ask questions, interact with other high-level loan officers and stuff like that as well. And what we find is that the people that come onto those calls that implement what we talk about, those people see success. And then there's the people that don't show up to any of the calls. They don't respond to any of our emails, and all of a sudden 3 months later, they're like, hey, this isn't working, right? And so it's like, we try to put the roadmap in place for people to succeed. But, people have to be willing to do the work and have to be willing to reach out to us and allow us to help them get to where they want to get, right?
Right.
That makes sense.
So how is it that people find you, Luke? If I'm a loan officer listening to this, or in the real estate business, or any of the tangential pieces that go with this, how do they find you?
So how would someone find me if they were to look for me today? So generally you can find me like at luke@paragondmg.com. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook a lot. I'm a marketer. So you can find me there, shoot me a message there. Check out our website, paragondmg.com. That's generally what we do. Obviously, we run Facebook ads and other ads as well. And that's how we generally get people. But it's kind of hard to find those.
So for those of you who are listening, we will have this information also in the show notes. So you will be able to get the information that you need to find Luke. Luke, awesome. Our time, unbelievably, is almost over.
Wow.
I know it goes so quickly, doesn't it? So the thoughts, things we haven't talked about that you really would like to talk about, or that you think people should know?
About marketing, I think I think we've talked about a lot of it. I think really when it comes down to what you're doing, especially if you're a loan officer, but I think really anybody, right? Anybody who wants to use marketing or anybody who wants to build a business, it really comes down to your mindset. We just find that the people that have a growth mindset, that are willing to learn, that are willing to change, that are willing to put in the work, those are the people that see the success. It's not necessarily that they're better salespeople. Maybe they are, but a lot of times it comes down to they just know that if they put in the work and they do the actions that are required to get the results, they're going to see results, right? And so I think that's huge for anybody that's, kind of wanting to start their own business or wanting to start marketing, is realizing that it's not going to be easy. There's no easy button, right? So either you're putting the time in, you're going to go network, you're going to go do all these things and find business that way, which is great as well. I think you should do both. Or you can spend some money and you can market, but realizing that you're probably not going to be good at it right away. And that you really need to have that long-term vision of, hey, I'm not going to be good at this. I mean, just like I tell my loan officers, I'm like, you didn't become a good loan officer in 30 days. So how do you expect to become a good person at selling internet leads? People that are coming from the internet that don't know, like, or trust you. They don't know you from anybody other than they saw one ad, they clicked on it, and they put their information in. But you need to build that trust, right? So when you get referrals, you're borrowing that trust from someone else because that person that's referring you already built that trust with that person they referred. So again, just having the right mindset to me is huge.
Your sense in terms of advertising venues that are most successful, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, what are you finding?
So we primarily do Facebook and Instagram for our purposes. LinkedIn is great from a B2B sort of standpoint. I think there's some people that have done, sort of the B2C, business to consumer. Google and YouTube, and those are great as well. Google's great. Generally, it's a little bit higher cost, but the intent seems to be higher as well, right? So, there's all sorts of different venues depending on what you're looking to accomplish. What's cool about Google, again, like I said, is there is the higher intent because they're going in there, they're searching for it, and they're clicking on it, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. Facebook is interruption marketing, so that's why I talk about increasing the intent by asking them to fill out more questions, by having sort of some barriers to entry into opting in. So, but there's all good venues. Facebook, organic, so posting your results, what you do on your profile is huge. I mean, I built pretty much my whole entire business up until about 8-9 months ago off of literally just posting client results, talking about my business, but then also being a person, right? People forget that on social media, people are going to connect with people that are similar to them, right? And so if you try to just sell, you see real estate agents all the time, they'll just post all their listings and that's all they post. Listing after listing after listing, and you see it's just crickets. Because people don't want to just be sold all the time. So if you're going to do that, it's like 10 to 20% of your time. That's a good free option. You can do the same thing with LinkedIn. You can be a little more salesy on LinkedIn because it is kind of that purpose, but still people want to connect with people that are like them. Right. And so by being authentic, by being yourself, and that word authenticity obviously is a little kind of a buzzword, but it's true. If you really are authentic and you really do put yourself out, you're going to attract the people that are similar to you. And that's probably who you want to work with anyway.
Right. I think that's so often true. We tend to think of wanting everybody. And so as you move into that, you tend to serve nobody because you can't sift out the people that you don't work well with.
Right.
And I think our revenue generating and growth mindsets take us to let's do everybody. But the ones who really do the best are the ones who are focused and look at who might really relating to the best and then go for that.
Well, and what's funny is that you said that is for a while there, we were working with real estate, mortgage, insurance. We were doing multiple things. And really in December of this last year, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go all in on mortgage. And literally the next month, my business, the size of my business doubled in 1 month. And so I think there is, and it's scary, right? Because you're like, oh man, I'm going to completely turn away everybody else. But what's funny is the fear of losing that business is actually generally it's wrong, right? Because you're actually going to be able to provide a better service. You're able to be more entrenched, and people are going to be attracted to you because that's all you do. You're the expert at one specific thing versus you're the general guy that does everything.
Right.
Right.
Luke, thank you. This has been a wonderful discussion. And I think for people who are thinking about marketing, the whole concept of what's the front end, but really also the back end, and have you put that together thoughtfully so people don't get lost or feel like once I opted in that I'm now just sort of taken for granted. And that's
right.
That's really what you're working around and avoiding. So those of you who would like more information about Luke and his marketing process, let us know. We'll be glad to get you in contact with Luke, and the information will also be in your show notes. So Luke, Thank you so much for being with us today. And for those of you who are listening, thank you to being with us on Building My Legacy podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.